The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you. Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the insert shot of two cats painted on a wall that is meant to denote cat fight, that is Hayden Orr. My pronouns are also he, him.
Yeah, I noted that moment as well. It was pretty egregious.
This movie, I did not expect this movie to be as horny as it was.
Yeah, so when I said it, I watched it on Tubi, and it just is described as horror comedy, and I was like, this doesn't feel like the era when they were making horror comedies, but it's not like a laugh, it's not Evil Dead, but there is this sort of dark, sort of like ironic humor below the surface of this, it is not your typical 60s sci-fi horror movie. There's something else going on, and it's definitely there's a horniness, and there's just like this gallows humor, I guess, is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, this is like one of those movies that if it had been made a few years later, it would have been like a Corman flick, and instead of just like busty women in one-piece swimsuits, they would have just been completely nude women.
If Corman or like Herschel Gordon Lewis.
Oh yeah,
we could have really leaned into the gore in it. It feels like slightly ahead of its time and couldn't do all the things that it would have done a few years later. But yeah, as far as like the dark humor, the title right away is pretty indicative of like a kind of gallows humor, and then like to really sort of lean into that, the first thing we see when the movie starts, we just have a black screen and we just hear a woman's voice saying, "Let me die, let me die."
Yeah.
And I was just like, Jesus, that's a pretty grim way to start things. Then we we go straight into the mad science from there. Like we get the title, The Brain That Wouldn't Die, and then we're like in a surgery. And I feel like recently we bumped into this a couple of times where we have a movie where there's like a father-son, that they're both doctors, and the son is like, I'm not going to do things the way my dad did. I'm going to, I'm going to do edgy science. My dad's lame and does just regular boring doctor stuff. And that definitely is what's going on here in this first scene.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But that's something that also, even though it's not in the original book, that's something that pops up in quite a few Frankenstein adaptations too, is them making Victor's father a surgeon or a doctor of some kind.
Yeah, that was like obviously like a really big part of Del Toro's Frankenstein.
Yeah.
There's like an extra level of rebellion that comes with that. Like he's not just rebelling against like the scientific establishment, but like, his family, his parents. That's a very like daddy issue kind of thing. But like, yeah, there's a different kind of rebellion that comes from that, and it's like he wants to be better than his dad and prove that to to get into what this scene is, like we have a surgery, and the patient dies on the table, and our dad Dr. Kortner is like, he's really upset that it didn't go well, and everybody in the room is trying to comfort him. They're like, he was
he was as good as dead before he came in. You really did your best. You know, we really did everything medical science has to offer, and it just wasn't going to work for this. And they're, you know, Dr. Kortner's like, okay. But then his son, who is like assisting in the surgery, is like, actually, we did everything in your boring old man textbooks, but
Yeah.
check out my hip new doctor shit. And he fucking brings the guy back to life on the table. Yeah, his dad is not happy about that. He's like, I don't like you doing this sort of, that was an experiment. You should have done a lot of testing before you did this to a real person. And, you know, Bill's like, I mean, he was dead and now he's not. So, you know, get fucked, Dad. Like, I did it. You know, you know, there's sort of arguments to be made on both sides here. Like, certainly, you know, Kortner Sr. is right. You shouldn't be testing on human, you know, patients before you've confirmed, you know, done your due diligence with, you know, mice and monkeys and whatever. But at the same time, it was a corpse, and now it's not a corpse, so it's hard to argue with results, you know?
Yeah. I think there's something like in the rebelling against the father, it's like just another aspect of what Victor and every other like mad scientist is doing, in like the rebellion against God as like a creator, or rebelling against death. I think that's probably where that like the father and son dynamic comes in. It's just, you know, it's kind of a more literal distillation of the idea of rebelling against creation or the universe, and, you know, in that way.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think, you know, most Frankenstein stories are very much father-son stories, and adding a father on the other side just really like compounds that.
Yeah, because I think his dad even says, you know, while they're arguing about it, I think his dad literally says, you know, something along the lines of like, you know, you can't take that decision from God, or like, God decided it was that man's time, you know, whatever, something like that.
Which, you know, again, is very much a lot of this, like, you know, there's the old guard who thinks that God has something to do with what happens in the, you know, in the OR or whatever, and then the, you know, young upstarts who are like, there is no God, and I'll be the next God, and all of that. And, you know, that certainly feels like what's going on here, where Bill is very much about... And, you know, like, I think one of the next things we see or hear is them talking about, like, you know, that his mom had died, which is obviously also a big thing we see in a lot of Frankenstein stories as well.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit before we get that. Like, they're talking about there's like a summer home that Bill is going to a lot, and the dad's like, I should have sold that when your mom died. But before that... we do, as you were saying, with like the horniness, we get an extremely weird and very horny scene here where, like, after they're done with the surgery, we find out that like one of the other people like helping there is, or like this nurse or whatever, is Bill's girlfriend, Jan. And they like, it's just the three of them, you know, father, son, and son's girlfriend, and they kiss. And the dad makes a joke about, like, okay, that's enough of the floor show. And he says something like, you know, once you all get married, you won't be as fun to watch, which is a fucking insane thing to say.
Yeah. It's so fucking, like, yeah, that's just an insane line.
But, like, Jan really just kind of, like, volleys it right back to him and is like... well, you know, I mean, I know we're all scientists here, but you don't have to worry about your grandchildren being test tube babies. Like, I'm going to fuck your son.
Yeah, your son's going to come in me. Like, did you know that? He's going to fucking bust inside me. It's like, bro, what are you...
Absolutely wild. Like, the craziest shit. Like, I was pretty shocked. Like, that is... no matter how, you know, like... later when we have like the burlesque dancers, like, okay, sure, fine, but like this kind of conversation between like a soon-to-be father-in-law and his daughter-in-law is wild shit.
Yeah.
But once she like leaves after this exchange, and that's when the dad is like, Bill, you know, there's talk around the hospital, there's some, or, you know, parts have been going missing from the morgue and everything, and I keep covering for you, but it's getting harder. So, like, you need to cool it on that. So, like, he knows that Bill is, like, doing some Frankenstein-y shit, you know, like that he's stealing body parts and doing something with them, whether or not he knows the specifics of it. And I think then Jan comes back in, and that's when we talk about the country house and that the fact that that Bill's mom died when she was young, or when he was younger. And he's like, I just like it out there. I can work at peace, you know, work in peace. And then I think we get like Jan and Bill are talking about like, you know, we'll get married soon, and we can you know, like again, very horny. They're talking about like how much they can't wait for their wedding night and all this. But then another nurse comes in and she's like, Kurt from the country house called. Something terrible has happened and he needs you there right away. And Bill's like, Jan, what do you want to see what I'm up to at the country house? You want to come with me? So she's not been out there before, but she's like, sure, I'll go with you. So I think the next thing we see is just like them on the road, and she's already asking questions like, what are you doing up there? You know, I've been curious, but you've been kind of cagey and I haven't pushed, but what am I getting ready to see? What am I in for? He's like, don't worry, you know, you'll see soon enough. Like, you know, it's hard to explain. Let me just let you see it, basically. Oh, then we have like this, like such an obvious, like this is, you know, very much like a thing of this time. He's like, we gotta hurry. There's, you know, something's going on up there. And like, we get all these sped up shots of the car driving, and like immediately like, okay, they're going to wreck. Obviously we know what's going to happen. And, you know, sure enough, we have a car crash. Bill, and it, you know, they don't have the budget for an actual car crash. So it's like, we see the car swerve, and then we just cut to Bill rolling down a hill outside of the car. And we get these sort of great POV sort of shots where like, he's like, oh no, Jan. And he goes, and like, we see like a hand reaching through fire towards him, and he like reaches out to her. And it's clear that like, it's too late. She's, you know, too badly burned. But even though she was reaching out so that like she has the motor skills to have a hand reaching, then he takes his coat and like sticks his hands in the car and like comes out with a round object wrapped in the coat. And it's, you know, pretty clear pretty quickly that like she was decapitated in the wreck, and he has her head. So I don't know how her arm was working.
Yeah.
She was headless.
I guess maybe chalk it up to one of those, like, which I don't even know if they're like, if that's a real thing or if it's just an urban legend where you like a body can still spasm after it's been decapitated kind of thing.
Yeah, some sort of like chicken with its head cut off kind of thing.
I mean, I assume that's what they were going for. Or maybe they just didn't even think about it, which is probably more likely, but...
Yeah. But so, of course, you know, at this point, he has totally forgotten about the reason they were speeding up to the country house in the first place. So he gets there, he's got, you know, this bundle under his arm, he's pounding on the door, yelling for Kurt.
Well, we should say, which I feel like they did it because they needed to pad the runtime a little bit, but he is like walking and then casually jogging with the severed head for like 3 minutes of screen time. Like they show like his entire like foot trip to the cabin almost.
Yeah, it is kind of wild. But yeah, it's probably exactly as you said. They wanted that run because the only time you need things like that is when you have to establish what's going on. But we know he has no car. We know where he's going. We know how he's going to get there. We don't really need a lot of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so eventually he does get to the house. Kurt lets him in, and he's like, "It's urgent. We need to set up the lab. We got to get going now." And Kurt's like, "What about the thing? You want to look in the closet? Remember I called you? There's a problem." And he's like, "We'll get to that later. This is more important. We got to work now." So we go straight into just like, you know, mad science footage. We've got tubes and beakers and, you know, steam and bubbling liquids and everything. And we actually have like a pretty good shot here where like the camera's kind of panning around. We're seeing all of this gear. And the last thing we finally see is Jan's head sitting in a tray, you know, sort of like, you know, reanimator style. But the tray is like bubbling liquid that her head is resting in. And she is starting to like wake up. So of course that's very exciting to Bill. That's a confirmation he needed that like what he's doing is good and right, and everything's going to be good. But as soon as she wakes up, again, like as we got at the beginning of the movie, her first words are "Let me die, let me die."
Yeah, and I think they mention it earlier in the movie, but it doesn't really. I mean, it gets brought up a couple more times, but the reason that he's able to keep her head alive and he's able to do all these crazy medical things is because he's developed a serum, I guess sort of like Herbert West style, that he says can make transplants, organ and limb transplants, not reject the new body, which I don't see what that has to do with bringing a head to life completely, unattached to any other limbs or organs, but that's sort of like the hand wavy science part of this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's so that's it's interesting because like he seems to have some sort of like some new science, something sort of forward thinking, whereas Kurt is like, she had a heart and a brain, and the soul lives in both. And so if we give her a new heart, she's going to turn into a monster. And it's wild to see those two diverging opinions. The idea that like our heart somehow contains part of our soul is so foreign to like nowadays.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're arguing, but Bill's basically like, I'm doing this. I can use your help, but like if you're not going to help, I'm still going to do it. And then we find out that in classic fashion, often the mad scientist is able to kind of keep his assistant under his thumb because the assistant wants something. And what Kurt wants is, he used to be a surgeon. He lost his arm in an accident, and Bill has transplanted a new arm for him, but it didn't go well, and so Bill keeps getting better and better at what he's doing, and hopefully we'll be able to replace the arm again with one that has not gotten withered and deformed over time.
Yeah, well, there's a line later in the movie, and I don't know if it's meant to imply this, but the way that it's when he's talking to Jan's head, Kurt is... There's a line he says that seems to imply that this is also not the first arm that Bill has grafted onto him that hasn't took.
Yeah, I took it that way as well, that like this has been a long process, and it gets a little better each time, but they continue to kind of like wither up, and Bill is sort of stringing him along like, the next one will be better, I just got to keep working, and you got to help me so we can get better at what we're doing.
Yeah.
And I think then, basically it's like, we've got 48 hours to get this done. I just need to find the body, and I need to keep the cops off of our scent in the meantime. We don't want them tracking me down and putting a stop to this. And Kurt's like, okay, but remember why I called you earlier? The thing in the closet? Can you check that out before you leave? Because stuff's going on there. And that's sort of like the big sort of like literal mystery box of this movie, is that like, we know there's a thing behind this closet door. It's like, a sort of jail cell door that's got like the little peeking, like the little panel that you can open, but we never get to see what's in there. Like, we don't for a while at least. There's a lot of them peeking in there, checking on what's going on, but we don't know what's happening. And it's there's some kind of beast that is so horrible that when Bill looks in, he's just like, oh God, okay, yeah. I mean, it's fine.
Yeah.
So
he just kind of just brushes past it.
Yeah. So we just hear some like kind of like animalistic kind of noises coming from it, and that's all we get. And he's like, all right, well, I'm headed out. I got to go find a body. And Kurt's like, how are you going to find a body? And he's like, there are ways. And cut right to Bill at a burlesque club. At first he walks in, and there's like a bunch of like cutouts of some of the performers, just like cardboard cutouts, and he's kind of eyeballing them, like making his selection. And then he goes inside, and we have like, there's a girl sort of erotically dancing to very like slinky jazz music. and he's watching her, and he's sitting at a table by himself, but there's like a group of people at a table next to him, and there's like a woman with that group who sort of like gets his attention and starts flirting with him a little bit. We're not hearing this dialogue. We just have like the ambient jazz music of the room, but you can tell like Bill's hitting it off with this girl. But then when the dancer finishes, she goes and sits next to Bill, and she gets his attention. So like he's really interested in that, so he starts talking to her, flirting with her. And again, I don't think we get any of this dialogue. Eventually, she gets up and like heads to the dressing room and kind of looks back at him coquettishly, and he gets up and follows her. He goes to the dressing room with her, and there we just have them flirting pretty hard. Now we're in there with them. We got the dialogue there. It's just sexy banter. He likes her dancing. He likes her outfit. And she's like, "What about what's under the outfit?" And he's like, "Yeah, your parts are standard issue, but the arrangement's pretty good." And it's like, that's not a great compliment,
Yeah.
but okay. Interspersed with it, we get another couple shots of Jan's head, like whimpering and begging for death, like just to really juxtapose like what's going on with Bill and Jan right now. But like at some point, the girl that he was flirting with at the table earlier also comes into the dressing room, and now the girls are sort of arguing over him. They both feel like they saw him first, and that they should get the and like Bill is just like a dude. Like, I don't know why these two women are just like instantly pouncing on just like this guy. But like eventually, like they're like arguing to the point that he's like, I gotta go. I will. I'll see you all later. And both of them are like, come back later on this evening. We'll be here. We'll check in. And so even after he's gone, they continue to argue and they're insulting each other. And then they, as you kind of hinted earlier, they straight up just start catfighting. They're like, physically fighting each other, rolling around on the floor. And the camera pans away from their fighting to pictures of cats on the wall. And we actually get like a meow sound effect edited into the soundtrack of the movie. Like, it is just so goofy.
Yeah, it was like that's like one of those things in a movie where if you were watching this like really fucking high or something, you would start to feel like you were about to have a bad trip, or like you're like, surely that can't be what's actually in the movie. That's something that my brain just conjured up. I'm about to start seeing things.
Yeah.
Also,
yeah, that's what. Yeah,
I gotta say, Jason Evers, the actor that plays Bill, there are certain shots in this, and I don't know if you were experiencing the same thing, but just the shape of his face and head, and like the way his hairline is, he looks in certain shots to me like young Vince Vaughn. Like I was getting that. Like Psycho remake Vince Vaughn and like certain angles it would hit him at, and I would be like, oh wow, that's weird.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So I think he leaves, and the girls fight, and then we go back to the lab where we find out that Jan is now trying to call out to the monster in the closet. And like she gets to where like she'll ask him something and have him knock on the wall to answer. And she finds out that, like Kurt's arm, she's also not the first head that they've experimented on. I don't know, again, like, where is the rest of this coming? I mean, I guess we did hear that he was stealing parts from the hospital or whatever, but like a head, that seems like it would go noticed.
Yeah.
But she is, she hates Bill for what he's done to her. She's angry, and she's like, I'm just a brain. I'm just a head, but you seem like you have some power. Together, we team up and we can get revenge on these scientists for the horrible things they've done to us. I mean, I think like, the monster kind of, knocks on the wall again. She says something like, they see us as things, but together we're more than that. We have power together. And so as we're hearing all that, him pounding on the wall in response, Kurt outside hears that, like, out in the rest of the house. So he comes in and checks on the thing in the closet. And like, he's like peeking in, and then like the door just like rattles, and Kurt jumps back, like it scares him. And Jan thinks that's hilarious. We get like an evil laugh from her. Like it's pretty clear, like she is getting like crazy. Like her mind is going from what's happened to her. And she then is like, so what is on the other side of that door? I can't see. And he's like, it's a horror beyond imagination. You couldn't possibly conceive of what's on the other side of that door. And she's like, I'm a head on a plate on a table. Like, I am a horror beyond imagination. There's nothing worse than me. And he's like, trust me, this is so much worse than what you are. This thing is the sum total of all Bill's mistakes. He's a mass of stitched together dead tissues, which, this seems like that sort of like Lovecraftian thing where it's just like, you can't even conceive of how horrible it is. And then when we see it later, it's like, oh, it's a guy.
Yeah.
And he's a weird looking guy, but he's a guy. But yeah, like I did like this sort of like teasing out where we're like, oh shit, what is this monster going to look like? And she's like, so why, it doesn't seem like you believe in Bill's work anymore. Why do you stay? And this is, I think, when he like is more specific that like, yeah, this has been one of several arms, and I just want to be a surgeon again. And someday, if it's possible, Bill's the only person who can do it. And she's like, but an arm is one thing, but there's no way Bill could transplant my head onto another body. And Kurt's like, yeah, that serum, I mean, it's pretty powerful. It could work. And she's like, does the serum do anything else? And he's like, I don't, not that I know of. Like, what do you mean? And she's like, well, I've noticed I've got some abilities that I didn't have before. And I don't remember if she like outright tells him this or just kind of like she realizes it, that like her communicating with the creature behind the door is less her talking and more her telepathically reaching out to him. Mm-hmm. And that, yeah, she somehow has telepathy because of whatever Bill's serum is. Oh no, she does tell him because he doesn't believe her, and then she's like, watch this. And she like, gets the creature to like, bang on the closet door and everything. And that really freaks Kurt out. And he like runs out of the lab and bumps right into Bill, who's just gotten home. And he's like, you won't believe what's going on in there. It's crazy. And Bill's like, I think you just got a little scared. You were by yourself. You got nervous. It's fine. And Kurt's like, oh, okay, fine. But so what about the body? Did you get a body? Bill's like, I had a lead, but it didn't. I got to be careful, I'm going to go. I'm going to get some rest. I will try again tomorrow. We've got time. I think then we just see like later, I guess later in the night or the next morning or something, Bill is going for a drive. I think it is the next morning because it's like a bunch of girls like out on the street, just like, not like sex workers street walking, but just like women taking a walk through their neighborhoods. Yeah.
And he's just cruising along, fucking eyeballing all of them from head to toe, trying to figure out, which body does he want for Jan's head.
Yeah, it gives off like serious like catcall creep vibes, but yeah, eventually he runs into somebody he recognizes, an old friend of his named Donna, and they are super flirty. Like she says something about like, do you want to play anatomy? It gets like pretty intense right away. Yeah. And she's like, I didn't quite understand what was, but like she wanted him to go with her to like a beauty contest. And like she's gonna like, she's looking for girls to take to like a higher up. I don't know. It's strange, but anyway, like Bill is like, yeah, I'll go with you to that, but you want to like, I need to pick up something from my house. You want to come back to my house real quick first? And she's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. But then right as they're about to drive off, to her death, of course, one of her friends walks by. I think her name's Jenny. and Donna's like, "Hey, Jenny, you want to come with us to the contest?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure." And Bill's like, oh, "Fuck, this ruins everything. I got a witness."
Yeah, that's kind of like a running gag in this movie. Is every time he thinks he's gonna get like a woman alone and like not be caught being the last person that they were seen with, it always like backfires, and some other person comes up, or they're like gonna leave a note that's got his full like legal name written on it. It's just like it's like continuously he just is like, God damn it, man.
Yeah, he is like the least stealthy mad scientist we've had. Like it is, yeah, it's bad. But I mean, he's at least smart enough not to go through with it when things aren't going the right way. So of course, when Donna's friend gets in, he's like, "It's fine. Let's just go to the thing. I don't need to go home first." And I think then we go to the contest where we see like 5 finalists come out, and they do like the applause-o-meter thing, and the girls get ranked or whatever. And Donna's like, "Man, that girl there has." Or she's like, "These girls are good, but there's another girl that I just saw recently who has the best body I've ever seen." And Bill's like, "Oh yeah, good body, you say, huh? That's interesting."
It's so funny. It's like like in a different kind of Frankenstein movie, this same kind of dialogue would be like, "I know somebody with the juiciest brain ripe for the picking." It's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's absurd. But we actually cut away from that back to the lab where Jan is like, "Oh, Bill's up to no good right now." He says that what he's doing is for the good of humanity, but I think it's evil. I think what he's doing is wrong. I think that it's inhuman to be joined to flesh not your own, which is an I'm not I think we were already doing some amount of transplants at this time in history, not the degree that we are now, but like...
Well, he has a line at the beginning where he says that he's about to be able to do limb and organ transplants like they do cornea transplants now. So, which I was unaware that they were already like doing, cornea transplants that early in history. I thought that was like a much later thing. But
yeah, you would think that would be a harder process.
Yeah, but I think the first I know we originally started doing organ transplants with like lesser organs, I guess you might say. I don't think there was anything major like a heart transplant until sometime in like the 80s, maybe. I might be wrong about that.
Yeah, I know like the big ones, like even like hand is relatively new. I think the first hand transplant was actually done here in Louisville, if I remember right. But yeah, there is certainly like a thing here, like a thread of like a sort of anti-science to a degree that like now comes across pretty bad. Like,
yeah.
To be like, it's inhuman to be joined to flesh not your own, and there's so many people out there with flesh that's not that that is their own now, of course, right? Like it's not, but it definitely.
If it weren't for a transplant, they would be dead way earlier than they should have, and their family would never have gotten to spend all this extra time with them. Like transplants are fine. There's nothing bad about them. Like this movie is making it out.
Yeah. Which I guess some of that is just like the times have changed, and there was different things that people knew at the time or whatever. But it definitely that stuff did not age well, I'll say.
Yeah.
But we go from that back to Bill, who has gone to like it's like a photo shoot for. There's like a model, but it's sort of like a reverse thing where it's kind of like those like life drawing classes, but for photography. So she is posing, and there's a bunch of dudes snapping shots of her. And like, when the class ends, they're all kind of filing out, and one of the guys tries to like pick her up, and she is not into it. She's kind of like, it seems like this is probably an occupational hazard she's used to, but she's never going to like. And so she kind of gives him the cold shoulder, and he leaves. But then like Bill's still there. He's just sitting over in the corner, and she's like, okay, I already sent one guy out. Just move along, man. And, he's like, you don't recognize me? And she's like, should I? And then, like, it's slowly over this course of this conversation, it's sort of teased out that, like, they were friends a long time ago, but she hates men now. And it's not just because she has to pose for, like, creeps who want to take pictures of her. Like, there was something that one man did to her long ago, and he's like, yeah, I know, I was there when all this happened. And we see that she has like a horrible scar on one side of her face. So like I think it's pretty explicitly that like a jealous boyfriend did something horrible to her. And so, now she hates men, and she, it's sort of implied that, like, yeah, she's, she uses her body to, like, get by right now because it's what she's got, and she's, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not being exploited, I'm exploiting them, because they're all the same, they're predictable, and I can get what I need out of them. But she's surprised when she shows her face to Bill that he does not cringe the way that she's used to. And he's like, me and my dad are plastic surgeons. We've helped a lot of people. And she's like, I've had this for a long time. I've gone through that. Nothing's worked. And he's like, yeah, but a lot's changed in that time. So I think my dad can help you. And she suddenly has hope for, like, the first time. And she's like, well, I mean, I couldn't afford it. I mean, you see what I do for a living. I'm not well off. And he's like, my dad likes to help people, and I think we can take care of you. And she's like, so what's in it for you then? And he's like, he says the most insane thing here, and, like, I think it's supposed to be that he's, like, joking, but this is fucking insane. He's like, well, I'm gonna fix your face, and then I'm gonna cut it off and give your body away. And she laughs at this and is like, nope, nope, I'm not coming home with you now. No, thank you.
Yeah, there's so many lines in this movie that are just like a sane person would not say this in real life.
Yeah, it is wild. But so yeah, she's like, all right, or she agrees to come with him, and she's like, let me call my friend real quick and let her know where I'm going. And right away, Bill's like, oh fuck, this again. But he's like, why? It might not go well. Do you want to get her hopes up? Do you want to, like, have to deal with her feeling sorry for you when you come back and it's not done? And she's like, oh yeah, that's true. And he's like, why don't you just leave her a note that you're going to be out and it'll be fine? And so she goes to change and, like, hands a note over the like, like dressing screen kind of thing. And I couldn't quite tell, does he, like, tear part of it off so she only, like, the friend only gets part of it?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because she wrote, like I joked about before, she wrote, like, his full fucking name on the note, and I was thinking that she wrote it, like, closer to the bottom of the page, and he just tore that part off, and then folded it and put it on the table.
Yeah, that's definitely what it seems like, because, yeah, like, it seems like he tears something, and then he's like, I'll put the note on the lamp where she'll see it, and she's like, yeah, great, she'll definitely notice that. So we go from that back to the lab where Jan is continuing to kind of, like, try to convince the closet creature to help her. And she's like, keep hitting the door. Eventually the door will break. You are stronger than this door. We've got to get out of here so that we can take our revenge. And then Kurt comes back in and he's like, I've got food for the creature. You don't need food. You just live off of hate. And she's like, oh, you're feeling strong now? I think I preferred you when you were, a sniveling coward. And he's like, I'm not afraid of you. You're nothing but a freak of life and a freak of death. And I helped make you and the thing in the closet, so you can't scare me. And she's like, you seemed pretty scared earlier. And he's like, whatever. I'm only here because, I'm next. Once your little thing gets done and we know it works, then I finally get the arm that I've been hoping for. and I hope that you suffer. I hope that Bill prolongs your life into an eternity of agony. Like, fuck you, bitch. Like, it's
Yeah. He just gives it to her right there. He's like, fuck it, I'm tired of this fucking shit.
Yeah, it's like no one likes each other in this movie, like including the young couple who should have theoretically liked one another. And I think then, she or Kurt goes to like feed the creature. He opens the little food hatch, and she telepathically is like, get him, and the creature grabs Kurt's arm, pulls him like to his shoulder. And then when Kurt pulls back out, he doesn't have an arm anymore. And this is his good arm. Yeah. So now he is, like this great sort of horrible irony where now he doesn't have any functioning arm and is even more in need of help from Bill.
Yeah. I mean, you said earlier that there's like a vein of black comedy running through this movie. And this particular part really shows that. Because he makes his way upstairs and he's trying to open the front door to get out of the cabin, but he doesn't have a good arm, and his other arm is like completely unusable, and he's like kind of feebly like knocking it against the doorknob, and it's just like he's just unable to fucking do anything.
Yeah, it's very, very dark comedy here for sure. And so he ends up like to sort of beyond that, like once he can't open the door, he just kind of collapses like head down on a desk, and the desk has like a bust of a woman, like just a statue of a woman's head on the desk right next to him. So it's like he hasn't even made any progress. There's just still a woman's head there looking on at him suffering.
Yes.
And we hear downstairs as he's laying there, Jan is laughing more insanely than even before. So she's just really kind of gone off the deep end at this point. And then I think we have like Bill arriving home with Doris, the model, and like I think they're like in the kitchen or something, and she's like, he's like, oh yeah, my dad will be home soon. We'll just wait here. And she's a little nervous that like, oh, why are we here already if your dad's not? And he's like, oh, he'll get back. And I was going to kind of get things set up. And he's like, you wanted something to drink? And he's like, I'll be right back. So he goes into the next room, and he, of course, finds Kurt dead. Then goes over. I think he goes over to Jan, and like he doesn't even bother to ask her what happened. Like she's got this like smirk on her face, like, yeah, fuck you. And he's just like, he knows that there's nothing good can be accomplished from asking her what happened. So he just like gets a sheet, covers up Kurt's body, fixes a drink for him and Doris, and then goes upstairs and is like, here's to your future, whatever it may be. And of course, right away she drinks the whole drink, and then right away is like, oh, I'm so sleepy.
Yeah.
And she's like, of course we know what's going on. She gets up, starts kind of stumbling around. Meanwhile, downstairs, Jan is telepathically like, come on, now's the time. You got to do it. Like, break the door. And, upstairs, Doris collapses. Bill carries her downstairs.
I gotta say,
look,
very inappropriate time to replay that sultry jazz tune that was playing at the club earlier. It's playing while she's slowly passing out, and then he picks her up, and I was like, this feels wildly inappropriate.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they were getting at there, but yeah, it did feel out of place. And then so of course Bill brings the body downstairs, the unconscious Doris, and is like, look, I told you I'd bring you a beautiful body. And Jan is like, don't do this. Let her go. I don't want this. And Bill is like not interested in what she wants. He's like, is it a crime to keep you alive? Is it a crime for science to jump ahead? Like, what I'm doing is good and everybody's going to know it. And like, I'm not going to listen to anyone. I'm going to do the thing that I want to do. And she's just yelling as he's like working. She's like, you must be stopped. He's like, I need peace and quiet to do my work. And she's like, I'm not going to be quiet. Fuck you. And he goes and gets a piece of tape and tapes her mouth shut. But, as we know, she's able to telepathically communicate with the monster. So she doesn't need her mouth. She continues to, urge the monster that we've got to escape. Now's the time. And so Bill goes over to the door and, again, just opens the little hatch part. And the monster starts, reaching through the hatch and tries to, attack Bill. And kind of gets a hold of him, and Bill started to pull away. And then the whole fucking door just comes off its hinges. And, the monster kind of, slams the door down, sort of kind of crushing Bill under it. And this is when we finally get, our first look at the monster.
Yes.
Who is not beyond all human comprehension. He basically looks like Sloth from the Goonies. He's just a big guy with kind of a tall domed head, and his eyes don't match up quite right.
A little bit of a cone head vibe going on. Definitely, it looks so much like Sloth. Now that you've said that, I feel like they had to have been inspired by this movie for Sloth's makeup. It really does. Not man, I wasn't even thinking about that when I was watching it, but now that you've pointed that out, it's it's pretty blatant.
Yeah, it's very. I mean, obviously they had more money with the Goonies, and it looks better.
Well, yeah, definitely.
But it's very similar in its characterization, and yeah. So of course, the monster sort of attacks at that point, and I think we just see that as he knocks Bill down. Something catches fire, something gets knocked over. And so now there's fire spreading throughout the lab. The creature just bites Bill's neck and spits out this gory hunk of flesh.
Yeah.
Which was probably pretty edgy for the time. It's fairly tame by our standards, but this is early sort of zombie attack effects here. And, it looks good. And then I think he, Jan is just leave me, go. And the monster picks up Doris and carries her upstairs out of the fire. And we just have, Jan surrounded by flames, laughing evilly and saying, I told you to let me die. And that's what takes us to credits.
Yes. Left vague on whether the monster. I mean, I guess the implication is that he's saving Doris, but I mean, with this movie, you never know. He could take her upstairs and then kill her or eat her. I don't know if he's got cannibalistic tendencies from biting Bill on the neck or anything. But speaking of the monster, our patchwork Frankenstein type of creature, the first time we see his hand, it is gigantic, earlier in the movie, and I was like, holy shit. I was like, is that makeup, or is that... And then we see him again, at the end, and I was like, no, that's just a huge dude. So I looked up who the actor was, and it's a fellow named Eddie Carmel, who was somebody that was afflicted with acromegaly, which is it's kind of like a form of gigantism. There's a very famous old Hollywood star named Rondo Hatton that was famously that had acromegaly and turned it into a film career. But Eddie Carmel got even bigger than Rondo Hatton. He was 7'6". I mean, he was almost 8 feet tall. And he was, beyond this movie, he wasn't in anything else that I could see, but he was a stand-up comedian. And for a long time in New York. And then after this movie, he went on and joined the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey circuses. And they were, they billed him as a giant, yada, yada. But he particularly wanted to be remembered for his comedy. He said he wanted to be known as the reverse Mickey Rooney.
That's great.
Yeah, but I was a little disappointed that he wasn't in anything else because he's got a great physicality. I mean, for the short time that we see him on screen, but yeah, I thought that was that that was just an interesting character that popped up in the real life behind the scenes of this.
Yeah, so like I just pulled up his Wikipedia page, and there's another fun little bit of trivia about him that's very appropriate for us. He was briefly the lead singer in a rock and roll band called Frankenstein and the Brain Surgeons.
Oh, I didn't even see that.
Apparently he recorded a couple novelty records, but I'm kind of curious. I'll see if I can track those down.
Yeah, I was about to say, if any of that's out there, we definitely need to check that out.
Yeah. But yeah, that's really cool. Like, I really like that like film and sort of like the entertainment world offers up places for people who wouldn't fit into society otherwise. I mean, like, as we have talked about many times on here, like, the Frankenstein story often lends itself to being, like, intertwined with, like, freak show stories, because at a certain point in our history, a freak show was the only place that some people could get work. It's a strange sort of, part of you wants to be like, well, they shouldn't be called freaks. They should be able to do what they want. And it's like, well, but if they can't, I mean, at least this is empowering them, giving them money, letting them take control of their destinies. Yeah. It's complicated, but like, I do appreciate that as time went on, there's stuff like this where like, over the course of like film history, there have been many like, very large, who's the guy that's in The Hills Have Eyes? That's like super nice guy.
What is his name?
It's like Michael something.
Michael, yeah. Hold on. But yeah, he's in. I mean, he's like a legend in like horror circles.
Michael Berryman.
Yes.
Yeah, and like, again, he is a guy who has a very distinct look. He's very large. He's got his facial features are different than your, like average person. And he's been able to like thrive in the entertainment world, which is great. So yeah, it's cool that's been like a thing for a while that Eddie Carmel also was able to do this. It's nice. Yeah. So yeah, that is really cool. And I think, one other tiny, like just a tiny little funny thing. Did you notice that like at the beginning of this film, the title card says "The Brain That Wouldn't Die," which is, what the movie's called. But at the end, it says "The Head That Wouldn't Die."
Yeah, I noticed that. I wasn't really sure what the deal with that was.
Yeah, I was like, is this a typo? Like someone like straight up just forgot what the movie was called? Or are they like telling us something that like, oh no, the whole head is alive and she's, maybe there's going to be a sequel and she's, I couldn't tell if it was a funny joke or a mistake, but either way, it definitely amused me.
Maybe the monster went back and he's going to be carrying her head around like Dr. Hill from Reanimator.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
Speaking of which, has Stuart Gordon ever talked about this movie inspiring Reanimator? Because now that I've seen this, it feels very much like Stuart Gordon. Like, I mean, granted, a lot of what's in Reanimator is actually in the original short story, but like the fact that Reanimator is also like a horror comedy, and particularly the stuff with the head and like the serum in this, it really feels like there was a lot of this behind at least the Dr. Hill stuff in Reanimator.
Yeah, it definitely seems like there's got to be a connection there. Yeah. I don't know of any specific time that he said it, but I would not be surprised at all if there's not an interview somewhere with him talking about it.
Yeah, would not shock me at all. But I actually, aside from the unexpected horniness of this, and maybe because of that a little bit, I found myself really enjoying this movie. I kind of wish we would have gotten more of Eddie Carmel as the monster at the end, But beyond that, I thought it was pretty fun. I don't think it's a very good adaptation of Donovan's brain per se, but it was still very fun, and I could definitely see myself, watching this again at some point in the future.
Yeah, it's a great sort of just like, chill retro movie to just like throw on in the background.
Yeah. Also public domain, because when they released this, they fucked something up with the when they were like trademarking the rights to it. So since its release, it's been in the public domain.
Nice. Yeah, it seems like that happens with horror movies a lot. I mean, I think obviously Night of the Living Dead is the biggest example most people know. But, sometimes that works out. I mean, like, I feel like, Romero's career, I don't know that it would have done as well if he wouldn't have had like this free calling card that everybody in the world had seen.
Yeah.
That was, used in the background of like every other horror movie. Like, it's just it's so a part of our culture because of this public domain mistake.
The public domain is good. It is very... I've never really... I don't know. We don't need to get into that. That's a topic for a whole podcast in and of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, people who know a little bit more about the law than us, probably.
Yeah.
But, speaking of the public domain thing, that probably explains how we ended up with what we're going to be talking about next week, which is The Brain That Wouldn't Die, the remake in 2020, which I mean, I assume because it was in the public domain, there was no, getting rights and all of that. They were just like, let's do it, and they did it, I would guess. And I don't know anything about this remake, so I'm very interested to see for this having come out like 5 years ago, it seems like I would have like seen it, but I don't know who made it. I don't know anything about it other than that I have tracked down a copy so that we can watch it, but I have not like even previewed it.
Yeah, I until like we were looking at all the adaptations of Donovan's Brain to like do this little mini series, I was not even aware that there was a remake of The Brain That Wouldn't Die. Like when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay. I did not hear anything about it when it came out, which I don't know if that had to do with COVID or whatever, or if that was like an issue in promoting it, or if it was just so low budget and like under the radar that people just kind of were unaware that it even existed. But I'm looking forward to seeing how much they change and how much they kept the same.
Yeah, me too. So definitely join us next week for that.
Yes. Anthony, where can they find us?
So you can find us on all of the socials at The Frankencast. You can email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com. We're also over on YouTube. And of course, you can always find us at patreon.com/thefrankencast, where there's a bonus episode every week. There's all kinds of stuff over there. We're, leaning into some comic books lately. We just watched the Frankenstein Chronicles series, which was a lot of fun. So there's plenty of more stuff with me and Hayden over there. There's a lot of back episodes with me and Eric. There's plenty of stuff for whatever you're into over there.
Yes, and you and Eric are still doing the Munsters.
Yes, the hope is that we will manage to finish both the classic Munsters and Munsters Today relatively around the same time, and I'm very excited to keep going with that. It's been a very fun project.
Yes, that's been one of my particular favorites on the Patreon, is you guys covering the Munsters episodes, especially some of the ones that I forgot about that were pretty egregious in their racism and misogyny, which has been less enjoyable knowing that those exist, but it's been enjoyable hearing you and Eric talk about them. So
yeah, this is the thing when you love things that are, were made a long time ago. You have to look at them through today's lens and accept them for their flaws, but you don't have to just ignore the flaws. You should talk about them. And so, yeah, that's one of my favorite things about doing the Munsters thing, is like looking at them with clear eyes and not shying away from the unpleasant side of it.
Yeah. Well, definitely join us over there if you are so inclined, folks, and we hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you'll join us for the next one. But if that's everything, then to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Freaking Cast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman, Eric Velasquez, and Hayden Orr. Follow us online at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.